Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Andre, a software engineer at Turo working with SpiceDB for just over 2 years now. I'm here to share a bit of our experience with SpiceDB as a product and AuthZed as a hosting partner. Congratulations, by the way, to AuthZed for its 5-year anniversary. It's a privilege to be celebrating this milestone together. So let's get started. First, a quick introduction to those who don't know Turo. We're the leading car sharing platform in the world, operating in most of the US and 4 other countries. Our mission is to put the world's 1.5 billion cars to better use. Our business model is similar to popular home sharing platforms you may be familiar with a fundamental difference. Vehicles are inexpensive compared to homes, so it's common that hosts build up fleets of vehicles on Turo. In fact, many of our hosts build successful businesses with our help. And therein lies a challenge that we solved with SpiceDB. Hosts have responsibilities, such as communicating with guests in a timely manner, taking pictures of vehicles prior to handoff, and again, upon return of the vehicle to resolve disputes that may happen, managing vehicle schedules, etc. These things take time and effort. And as you scale up your business, fleet owners often hire people to help. And the problem is, in the past, Turo had a flat ownership-based permission model. You could only interact with the vehicles you own. So hosts had no other choice but to share their accounts and their passwords. Safe to say that folks in the target audience of this event understand how big of a problem that can be. Moreover, third-party companies started sprouting all over the place to bridge that gap, to manage teams by way of calling our backend, which adds yet another potential attack vector by curating, Turo's customer data. So it had become a large enough of a risk and a feature gap that we set out to solve that problem. The solution was to augment the flat ownership-based model with a team-based approach, where admin hosts, meaning the fleet owner, can create teams that authorize individual drivers to perform specific actions, read, fine-grained, on one or more of the vehicles that they own. Members are invited to join teams via email, which gives them the opportunity to sign up for a Turo account if they don't yet have one. So the solution, from a technical standpoint, is a graph-based solution that enables our backend to determine very quickly, can driver ABC perform a certain action on vehicle XYZ? In this case right here, can driver ABC communicate with guests that booked that certain vehicle? SpiceDB made it trivial to design and implement the solution compared to traditional relational databases, which is most of our backend. Moreover, it offloaded our monolithic database with a tool that offers a much higher performance and throughput. Anecdotally, the simplicity of SpiceDB helped implement a last-minute requirement that creeped in late in the development cycle. Support for inactive team members, the ones who are pending invitation acceptance. Prior to that, the invitation system was purely controlled in MySQL, and we realized, if we're storing the team in SpiceDB, why not make it so that we can store inactive users too? And the reason I'm mentioning this is this impressed everybody who were working on that feature at the time, because it was literally one single line of code that we had to change in the schema to enable this. I'll talk more about this in a second, where I show some technical things. But the graph that I just mentioned then roughly translates to this schema. So this is simplified but still accurate rendition of what our SpiceDB schema looks like. Hopefully clarifies how driver membership propagates to permissions on vehicles, if you're familiar with SpiceDB schemas. Some noteworthy mentions here are self-referencing relations, this guy up here, or all the way up there. So basically, this is how we implemented the inactive users. If you notice that there's a member role and then an active member role, and by way of adding a single record that connects the member role with an active member role in the hosting team, you can enable and disable drivers. So this was so incredibly impressive at the time, because we thought, we're gonna have to change the entire schema and a whole bunch of other changes. And no, that's all it took. And again, it's one of those things that once it clicked, if you're familiar with SpiceDB but not with the self-referencing relation, looking at this, that pound sign member role and pointing to a relation in the same definition, it kind of looks a little daunting. It did to me. I don't know. You're probably smarter than I am, but it was daunting. But then one day it just clicked, and I'm like, okay, that's how it is. And I was super stoked to continue working with SpiceDB and implement more and more of the feature, and help the feature team actually, because it was a separate feature team that was working on this. So that self-referencing was interesting. The other noteworthy mention here is namespaces. If you notice, in front of the definition, there's a hosting teams /. This is how we separate the schema into multiple copies of the same schema in the same cluster. We have a ephemeral test environment in which we create and destroy on command sandbox replicas of our entire backend system. This enables us to deploy dozens, if not hundreds, of isolated copies of the schema along with everything else in our backend to test new features in a controlled environment that we can break, that we can modify as we see fit without affecting customers. And the namespacing feature in SpiceDB allowed us to use the same cluster for all those copies, and save us some money, because we don't have to stand up a new server. There's no computational costs or delays or any of that in provisioning computing resources and this and that. So the feature was released the week of us going the pre-deployment, pre-live, like in a test environment. And we were probably the first adopters of this, and it was really cool. At a high level, this is how our hosting team feature works. You can see, let me use the mouse here. You can see how permissions propagate to teams. So team pricing and availability goes to the relation of the team in the hosting team. Hosting team has the pricing and availability for active member roles or admin role. Plus sign, as you all know, is a or. And then it connects to the driver. Simple, fast. This is blistering fast. One other query that we make to SpiceDB very, very often. Matter of fact, this is the single most issued query to SpiceDB at any given time is the currently logged in user a co-host? And that's done for everybody, even if you're not a co-host. This is how we determine whether you're a co-host or not. That will then drive UI, decisions, what widgets to show, only if it's pertinent to you, if you're a co-host. If not, then there's no reason to pollute the UI with co-hosting features. And this is what the UI looks like. So on a team, you have co-hosts, and you can add or invite. Here's an interesting thing. The code name of the project was co-hosting. It ended up being hosting teams because we then used the nomenclature co-host to add people to teams. So here you have your co-hosts. You can invite them by email. They get an email that points them to sign up to Turo. If they already have an account, they can just log in, and the moment they log in, it automatically accepts the invitation. Next, you have the fine-grained permissions of what your group can, or your team can do. In this case, we have trip management enabled. This is the base, actually. The base permission that you have to grant to everybody on the team. And then there's pricing and availability that allows you to set prices for vehicles, discounts, see finances and all that stuff. So you can imagine why that's why it's very nice to be able to toggle this and not let just any co-host that has no business looking at your finances just hiding it from them by way of untoggling the permission here. And then you have your vehicles. The list shows all the vehicles you own. You just toggle the ones you want, save, and you're off to the races. Your hosting team is in place and working. So, AuthZed as a hosting partner. When you're considering using, a big challenge of adopting a new system is setting it up and running it in a scalable and reliable way. You have to manage, security issues. You have to manage auto scaling. You have to manage all kinds of, infrastructure challenges. And that costs money. In this day and age, it's really hard to find engineers who understand infrastructure well enough to manage all the moving parts of a highly scalable system such as SpiceDB. For over 2 years, Turo has used AuthZed's fully hosted cloud offering, where they're responsible for deploying and maintaining all the infrastructure required by the SpiceDB clusters. And that gives us time back to focus on growing our business, which is our primary concern. This is a great opportunity actually to give AuthZed a shout out for their excellent reliability. In over 2 years, 2 years and 3 months now actually, of operations in production, we had a single incident. And even then, in that event, they demonstrated the capacity to recover from faults very, very quickly, to pinpoint the problem incredibly quickly and, take care of it. I think the outage was, we were out for like 38 minutes, something like that. It was, we've had other partners that things were much, much more challenging. So, and once in 2 years. The root cause, the entire handling of the outage was very, very, nice to see, because it involved thorough analysis, postmortems, and making sure that it doesn't happen again, putting in safeguards to ensure that it doesn't happen again. So everything was systems fail. We understand that, and how we deal with it is what shows how how good you are. And with all said, we rest easy knowing that we're well taken care of. And ultimately, hosting with AuthZed saved us money in the long run, because it would otherwise take a lot of engineering time and effort just to keep the clusters running. So if your company is considering adopting SpiceDB, I would highly encourage you to have a chat with AuthZed about hosting as well. From our experience, it's well worth the investment. Lastly, on behalf of Turo, I'd like to thank folks who were instrumental in the success of this project. John Lee and Evan Corcoran, who are pretty much our first points of contact and for always helping facilitate things for us. Jimmy Zielinski, Joey Shore, and Jake Moshenko, who helped us get up to speed in the initial states of the project 2 years back. Evan Cordell and Kyle B as first responders to our requests and the one incident, and everybody at AuthZed for for being great, for doing great things, for helping us so much, and for the opportunity to for me to speak here to you all today. And here's to the next 5 successful years.